How's it going, everyone? It is Joe here from Omnipoke, channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. And today we are on PTCGO and we are looking at a Donphan Groudon deck. I discussed this when we were discussing decks for Worlds, and I know a few people have tipped off Groudon. He could be quite successful at Worlds, seeing as though Toad was doing well at US Nationals. Also, this has a good matchup against Manectric, and it can sometimes handle Rayquaza as well. That's probably one of the things that is more difficult to deal with, the Rayquaza matchup. But in here, I'll tell you the sort of strategy we go through. So let's actually start off with some of our other attackers that we have in the deck. I've actually gone to pair Groudon with Donphan and Hawlucha. These are sort of in here to release the pressure on Groudon. It means that Groudon only really needs to take, 3 or 4 prizes rather than a full 6 all on his own shoulders. So we'll start off with the Hawlucha here. 70 HP, fighting Pokemon. We know it's just a really fast, hard-hitting attacker with that Flying Press doing 60 to EX Pokemon. It does have a nice resistance to fighting, although I don't think fighting is too popular right now. It can help out against stuff like Landorus if we see any of that. And it's a free retreater, which is fantastic for Donphan as well, because it means we can move in and out of him when we want to. But essentially, in a Donphan Groudon style deck, all you're trying to do is take an early 2 to 3 prizes, so that then your Groudon can come in and finish the game with a 2 to 3 prize couple of turns, because you will have a Focus Sash on our Groudon. So essentially it can't be killed in its first attack. So you will bring in your Groudon, take either 1 or 2 prizes, get smacked in the face, and then finish off your game with 1 or 2 prizes. Therefore, Hawlucha is helpful because he can put immense pressure on EXs very early on in the game. As early as turn 1, you can start hitting for 60 plus damage, depending on if we have, tools, stadiums, or even a strong energy on this guy. So Hawlucha, fantastic. It's trying to beat down these EXs. And also we have the Donphan in here with the spinning turn, of course. Slightly less output than the Hawlucha, but he does protect himself at the same time and throws Robo Subs in the way. This is really helpful against most decks. Hawlucha doesn't hit for weakness on Manectrics, so it's really nice to have the weakness that Donphan can have on them, so that we can actually sometimes even one-shot before they go Mega, which is very nice. Spinning turn, yeah, that 40 damage is obviously going to go get increased by, again, a bunch of tools, energy, and the stadiums that we play in the deck. So normally we're looking for 2 shots on these things, so Donphan's pretty good as well. We do have the Wreck Attack. It's like a mini version of Groudon. 80 plus 60 more if there's a stadium, and then discard it. We do play 1 double colourless in this deck, so we can get the option to Wreck if we really want to. But it doesn't happen that often because normally our attachments are devoted to our Groudons in the mid-game type situation. So we're sticking with 1 energy attacks with Spinning Turn and Hawlucha until we take those couple of prizes, and then we go pretty much aggro with our Groudon. So it's a very simple deck in terms of how you want to play it. You just got to take your prizes however they come. You can basically waste 5 prizes in terms of killing your own Donphans of Hawluchas. It doesn't have to be the most efficient ways of killing things. But once you do that, you need to be in a state where you have Groudon either ready or near ready, because we do have Robo Subs that can stall us out for a few more turns. So yeah, a 3-3 count of Donphan is fine. 3 Hawlucha is pretty necessary so that we can handle Seismitoad. One thing I will mention, this isn't the 100% list that I'm playing in real life at the moment. That's just because I couldn't find a Regirock in the game. I'll get a picture of that Regirock up later on. If you do have this promo Regirock, it also has the same trait that Groudon has, Barrier. It's a really good thing to have for Seismitoad. So the only thing I would change if you were thinking of playing this deck, I would cut 1 Robo Sub for 1 of these Regirocks, which I'll show later on in the video. I won't forget, because they survive 3 hits on Seismitoads, because they can't be lasered and they can't be captured around or anything like that. So it's really difficult for Toad players to actually even 2-shot that guy. So it buys you a lot more time for Groudon than something that maybe a Hawlucha would, because they can just muscle band laser with their own stadium and 1-hit these Hawluchas. Having that Regirock gives you a lot more time to set up your Groudon, which I feel like is necessary against Toad players. That's basically why we have the Groudon in here. because Donphan really does struggle against the Seismitoad matchups. But now, it used to be like played as a 1-1 in Groudon, in Donphan at least, as like a sort of tech option. I feel like upping it to 2-2 is the right sort of choice, because it's really good against almost all of the top 4 decks right now. I find myself getting out Groudon almost every game, pretty much. So I feel like having the 2-2 is necessary to guarantee that we'll at least get 1-up in the game. Even if we have to Juniper, or if one's prized or something like that, we're going to get a Groudon going for the most part. So very important. Let's look at this guy's attacks. I rarely ever use it, to be honest. We have Ripclaw for 30, just a fighting colourless, flip a coin if heads, discard an energy. I know that some people are keen on playing the Shrine of Memories to try and use this attack against Seismitoad players. I have tinkered around with that, but most of the time it just means that our Groudon's in the active sort of preemptively, and I'm not really a fan of that. I'd rather just stay on the bench for as long as possible and then come in swinging, taking a prize each turn. So I rarely ever have to use these attacks, to be honest, but it's just good to show off the card, I guess. We do have the 2 Primal. There's the nice one, but it's harder to read, so let's get this one up. 240 HP. The barrier is the main reason why this card is really good. He can't be Lysandered up when we go Mega. He can't be Megaphoned as well, so our Focus Sash will always stay intact, guaranteeing ourselves like a turn of survival, which is amazing. With Gaia Volcano doing huge numbers, 100. If there's a stadium in play, do 100 more, and you get to discard that stadium, so that's 200 damage. And then, of course, so that we can hit into Mega EXs for knockouts, we have Strong Energy, and we have additional damage from stadiums that we do play, so we will be one-shotting pretty much everything on our path with this Groudon, so it's very easy to take prizes with this guy. And yeah, very, very powerful card. It pretty much puts you into an auto-win situation, which I really love about the deck. The final Pokemon we are playing is the Shaymin EX. It's just to help us draw cards. I don't feel like playing more than one, simply because we're trying to deny prizes for as long as possible with the Hawlucha and the Donphan until we're ready to come in with Groudon. For the most part, sacrificing 2 prizes with Shaymin is okay, but I think playing any more Shaymin would be really detrimental to our strategy, so I'm happy with just the 1 in here. I usually do get usage out of it, but again, playing more than 1 just sort of is counteractive to our game plan. Next up we have the Comp Search. Comp is really nice. As we all know, we have pretty much a few combo pieces in here, and it just gets us into our stuff. Similarly, we have a single letter. It's because we have Karina in here. Basically, all fighting decks run off this card. It's like a super-powered Skylar, so having searchable energy via Karina and the letter just gives us so many outs to getting into energy. Although we play a fairly low count, as you'll notice down there, energy is really crucial. We need to be attaching once a turn, so often my first turn Karina will be for that letter to guarantee a few turns of energy, which is very important. Like I say, we do play, I guess, 4 Robosub for the means of this video, but even 3 is plenty because it's great for denying prizes early on with Donphan. It's fantastic as well when you're trying to simply deny prizes and you need that 1 or 2 turns to simply catch up with attachments for your Groudon decks. So it's really great for throwing this into the active position. Forcing Lysanders, obviously they can only then deal with, you know, your Shaymin, your Hawlucha or your Donphan. So they're only ever taking the 1 or 2 prizes, but Robosub at least forces those awkward situations, and sometimes your opponent just doesn't have the answer and they have to run through this guy. And it's fantastic for us because we've basically just gained a turn by dropping him in the active. Next up we have 2 switches. If we start Groudon or maybe a Phanpy and we think it's in danger, we can just switch out of there. Pretty important, really. Also, every now and then, I know metal decks are sort of cropping back up. If we do get hit by a Dialga's attack, it can be very awkward, so we have to switch into like a Hawlucha or maybe a Robosub just to re-discard it or retreat out so that we can attack again with Groudon. So it's important to have more than 1 in the deck. I used to survive with just the 1, but I upped it because of the amount of metal that we're seeing at the moment. Next up, 2 Ultra Ball. Everything is Karina searchable, so I don't feel we need to have way too many of these. Obviously, having a couple means we can get into Shaymin quite nicely, and it means that we can Karina for 2 Pokemon in a turn because we can find the fighting type Pokemon and then go for Ultra Ball and then play that Ultra Ball to, you know, keep going and getting more stuff. So pretty useful there for flooding our field with Pokemon. Then we have 3 VS Seeker. There's a couple of one-of techie supporters that you'll be seeing here, and also it's something that we can grab with Karina as well. If we have a really dead hand but one Karina, we can find a Pokemon, find a VS Seeker, guarantee ourselves a supporter next turn. Similarly, if your hand's dead, you can just find a comp search with Karina. So Karina really does, like, it's the engine pretty much of this whole deck. It's my crucial supporter for the most part, because it gets us into all of our guys, gets us the Groudon. If you VS Seeker a Karina turn 1 and your first search was a Groudon, you guarantee a turn 2 Primal for yourself if you don't get End. So that's pretty good to know. Next up, we have one AZ. It is used to pick up maybe a Groudon that's been captured up before we're able to go Mega, which is quite important, even under Train Lock, which is nice. It can also pick up the Shaman again to try and deny those prizes once we've got usage out of it, or to get multiple uses out of it as well. So I really like using the AZ. I think it's more in here for the Toad matchup. I definitely like it when I have my one Regirock in here, because it is 3-shot by Seismitoad players. If you can just take 2 hits to the face and then use your AZ on your Regirock, that's just, you know, you've gained 3 more turns essentially with your Regirock, because you can go into like a Hawlucha, free retreat back out into that Regirock, and of course it's fully healed. It just nets you so much more time for Groudon to get going, and Toad really doesn't like that. It tries to beat the Groudon player, force the Groudon active, and start beating it down before Groudon can take the 6 prizes. But when we have Regirock and the 1 AZ that I love to play, normally we win in terms of time exchange. I can't really demonstrate the power of Regirock simply because I haven't got one. I tried to trade for it for like an hour today, but I can't really wait anymore. I need to get this video out for you guys. So yeah, the AZ is a combo that works great with Regirock. I've kept it in here because it still has value. Like I say, moving the Groudon under Train Lock and stuff before we Primal, it's pretty nice. It can also pick up, like, if we've been head-ringered, it can just clear that off. So yeah, there's the 4 Karina. I've already discussed how this is pretty much the best card we can use turn 1. It's like the best thing we can see. We have 2 Lysander. Obviously, when we're on our rampage with the Primal Groudon, it's great to Lysander things to make sure we take as many prizes as possible, get maximum value out of that guy before he is knocked out if we haven't already won the game at that point. So Lysander's often our finishing move type supporter that we look for, and it's natural to play 2 really. It can also really help out, again, if we're trying to take these cheeky prizes. Hawlucha is great at killing Shamans and Jirachis, so we really appreciate having 2 Lysanders in here. We've got 3 N and 3 Juniper. It's fairly standard. I've cut them both by 1 because I feel like we needed to make space for more Groudon pieces. But I'm happy with the 6 and the 4 Karina, plus the Comp Search and the Shaman. It all works out, in my opinion. Still fairly consistent having 3 of each of these in here. Finally, the one other techie supporter we're playing is a single Teammates. This is really nice for the Trainer Lock matchup once again. It can help us keep finding energy. It can help us find more stadiums as well, so that we can make sure we one-shot things with Groudon. It's often comboed with our Robo-Sub as well, so we didn't really lose a prize, but we have just a lot of chances to use the Teammates throughout a game, because our own Pokemon will be knocked out a lot more often than other decks, because you know, we have more than 6 chances, because these Robo-Subs don't count for prizes, but they do still trigger off the Teammates. It just makes perfect sense to play at least 1 in here. We have VS Seeker 4 as well, so we can get a lot of uses out of Teammates, and it's a fantastic card to have. Next up, we're playing 4 stadiums. We have 2 of the Fighting Stadium. Still, I think, probably the most important one for the fighting decks. It means that the Hawlucha and the Donphan are doing great damage to things in the early game. Obviously, it helps out with Groudon. It means we can swing into Rayquaza EXs with just 1 strong energy, plus the Fighting Stadium. We can kill Rayquazas. It means we can also get into the higher HP Pokemon like Kyogre and stuff. So very, very helpful to have those in there. We are also playing 1 Magnetic Storm. Magnetic Storm is really just out of fear for things that have resistance. Some Manectric players play things like Articuno, at least one of, and that can be a real hurdle for Donphan to hit into. Obviously, you don't want to waste, bring out your Groudon just to kill an Articuno, so putting in 1 Magnetic Storm is quite nice in here, because then we can try and kill that Articuno maybe a turn or 2 earlier. So that's very helpful. It was used for the bats as well. I remember a German national list, I believe it was German, it was definitely a European nationals, played like 3 or 4 of this card over fighting stadiums just to do with the bats. But bats really has reduced in play. Landorus bats isn't seen much at the moment. Toad bats is still around, I guess, but that's really it. So I'm happy with 1 magnetic storm. I did play 2 in here, but I've cut it down and flip-flopped it for an extra fighting stadium. I still definitely see the use in it as well, though. Plus, it just adds the overall stadium count for Groudon, so sometimes you can just play it literally to be a plus 100 damage for your Groudon. Finally, we have 1 Silent Lab in here. Silent Lab is to help us out at killing stuff like Aegislash, because Metal, again, it's rising in popularity, and it's probably one that you're going to have to expect at Worlds. So having 1 Silent Lab in here is really nice. It just means we can run through Aegislash without having to Lysander around things, so we have, you know, that many more outs into getting through Aegislash. We have the 2 Lysander, like a teammates can bounce into a Silent Lab and stuff, so we have more outs to killing Aegislash quite easily, so that's pretty nice. I've once or twice used it as like early game to try and disrupt people, but really it's very niche. Maybe against a Toad player I feel like it can be worth it to stop them doing Shaman, so maybe you free yourself of the item lock if they don't have a decent hand without being able to use their setup from Shaman. But really I like to hold my stadiums as best I can for the Groudon in the late game, so really it is mainly for Aegislash. You can also use it for Suicune and stuff, I guess, but that's about it. Mainly Aegislash, I would say. And again, it's a 4th stadium to help out our killing spree with Groudon. Onto tools, they are very, very important in here. We have 2 Focus Sash. One of these is guaranteed to go on your Groudon. There is not any situation I can think of where I wouldn't put a Focus Sash on a Groudon. There's potential maybe to flip-flop 1 Focus Sash with a Hard Charm, because in many occasions it does do the same thing. In my own opinion though, seeing as though Toad is strong, Kyogre's strong, and Groudon is a strong pick for Worlds at the moment, I feel like some people are going to be teching a couple of grass types, maybe the Leafeons and stuff, into their decks. So I prefer to have the safety net of a Focus Sash saying, I will not be knocked out whatever my opponent's playing. So it's like a stone wall, I will not be killed. Whereas a Hard Charm, I can see it being just as useful against a few things, and even more useful against a few things. Like it can really, really frustrate Manectric. It can be impossible to deal with. Most Rayquazas can't deal with it, just like a Focus Sash would. So maybe if you're feeling riskier, you can go for 2 Hard Charms, or at least 1 Hard Charm, 1 Focus Sash. I just like having the guaranteed that I would not be knocked out, whatever my opponent's playing. Groudon's going to get the value. And that's basically what we're going for here. Additionally, it can be used alongside a Donphan to try and protect it, if we want to start building that up for a wreck. Also, we can throw it onto a Hawlucha to be like a mini Robo-Sub, if that makes sense, because we get hit for a turn and we're not getting knocked out, so we don't lose a prize that turn. And they have to two-shot into a non-EX, which is never nice for them. So Focus Sash is a really, really nice one. It really helps against aggro decks, and obviously it's important for the Groudon. Next up we have 2 Muscle Band, trying to increase the output of these guys, and that's the same reason why we have a Silver Bangle in here. I like playing the 1 Bangle, seeing as though it's Karina searchable. It just means that we can combo off with Hawlucha a bit nicer. It means that we just need to have either 1 Strong Energy or a Fighting Stadium in play to kill Shamans, which is slightly better than having the Muscle Band, because then we need the combination of all 3 of those on Hawlucha. So it's a bit more techy, but most of the time Bangle's going to be useful anyway. There's a lot of EXs in format at the moment, so you get value out of it either way, really. Finally, onto energy. We're playing pretty standard 4 Strong Energy, just for the output increase. Obviously, we can't get hammered away because we've got the barrier, so there's no worries there. We have the double colourless energy as well. That's, like I say, for the wrecking option. Groudon does have a single colourless in his attack cost, so it doesn't really hurt if we have to put it on him. Sometimes it's preferable not to, just because people can tech Mewtwo. I know that some Toad players like playing Mewtwo to try and deal with Groudon a bit better, so it's sometimes detrimental to put the DCE on, but really in most situations you can be fine. Also, it gives us the option again, just like the AZ, we can, on turns where we don't really have much to do, we can just Sky Return ourselves into a Robo-Sub, and protect those 2 prizes that would be sitting on our bench for a Lysander target, and pick up our Shaman. So that's a pretty nice combo as well overall. Finally, we're just playing the 5 fighting. So that's an overall 9 energy. Basically, 4 energy of your game is always dedicated to a Groudon. Sometimes 5 if we do get headringered by a Manectric or a Toad deck. So that's something to bear in mind. You have to be very careful with your energy attachments in this deck, and when you can discard and when you can't discard your energy. Overall, if you do take prizes quickly with the Hawluchas and the Donphans, you shouldn't really be wasting more than 3 energy to take 2 prizes, in my own opinion. So then you're pretty safe using the rest on Groudon, and you can use some to retreat or whatnot. So pretty safe. We're trying to go for a very standard list, I'd say, of the Primal Groudon. I will just quickly, before we hop into a battle, try and show up this Regirock, the one that you should look to get if you're going to be playing this list. Let's just go on to a trade, just because I don't have one. Regirock, wherever it is. Yeah, this is the thing I'm looking for. 110 HP, has the Omega Barrier. Because it has that nice 110, it means Toad at full capacity is hitting 50. That's with a Muscle Band, of course. So it has a 3-shot into this guy, which is obviously horrible. So playing one of these nets you a good few turns against Toad players and can really swing the matchup for you. So I like playing one of these over one of the Robo Subs, like I say. But alas, I don't have it at the moment. So yes, let's discard the trade. We will be going for a matchup now with Groudon, and hopefully we can find a few meta decks. Toad is kind of a worry for me just on here because we don't have that Regirock. But in testing so far against Seismitoad in person, I think it's been a lot nicer having that single Regirock. We have a game against Abracadabra. And looks like they're going first. And we see a Yveltal EX. That's actually like fairly okay for Groudon. Seeing as though we have the sash, we can normally run for a couple. It's kind of awkward for the Donphan, though, for us to take those early 2 prizes that I keep alliterating to. We see an early Shaman from our opponent, getting rid of a Headringer and a VS Seeker. You also see a Battle Compressor. Getting rid of some more Dark Energies. And we see a VS Seeker for that N that he also threw in the discard pile. And he does play the N. And we also see a Manectric that he does decide to bench, which is a pretty big decision on his part. A pretty bold decision as well, I would say. Simply because it's really easy for us to target that with Donphan. And we do have Lysander in hand as well. I'm just checking the counts of things we have here. We do have that one Focus Sash in hand. I'm just seeing if we're able to discard it. We probably can happily discard it. I'm also going to look to find that our Shaman is in here, which is nice. So that's an option for us this turn. Okay, so we are going to go for, I think, we can play the Focus Sash on our active Vampy to protect it. We can Ultra Ball, bench, I think just a Robo Sub is fine here. Alternatively, we could go for a VS Seeker. I think that's fine as well. Pretty safe. We'll grab some energy. I'd like to keep the Lysander in hand, simply for that Manectric later on. So I'm going to attach to the bench. And I'm not too worried about anything else this turn. Happy to keep the Muscle Band so that when the Focus Sash gets popped, we can change it over. So I think I'm pretty happy to pass it over now. We see a Skylar. And let's think what our opponent's going to look for here. I can't think of much, just an Ultra Ball it looks like. Opponent discards an AZ and a Lightning Energy. To find a Shaman, looks like they want to slightly improve their hand. Looking for a Dark Energy, I would imagine. We just see a Lightning get attached to the Manectric. And they also bench a non-EX Yveltal. They're the most annoying thing for us to get through. But we are able to avoid that so far as they just pass it over. We can go into Donphan, into the active. I was hoping that our Focus Sash got popped. Unfortunately it didn't. We will still opt to attach here. I'm trying to think if I want to Lysander this turn or not. I don't think there's much value in it, so we're going to go for the Karina. And now might be the turn where I'd go for the Groudon, because then we can Ultra Ball for a Shaman. So let's find Groudon, and I'm also happy to not Focus Sash this turn. I'd rather have a Robo Sub, because we're not in threat of being immediately knocked out if we do get Lysandered up. So we can play out our hand and go for this Shaman play now. For a fresh 6. We do end up finding the Focus Sash, which is pretty cool. And we can just go for a spinning turn here. For that huge 20 damage, don't know if our opponent can handle that, but overall we got a better hand now. So I'm pretty happy with our board state. Our opponent playing a mixture of energy types, and he's already got quite a few darks in the discard pile. Most Manectrics, if they're playing dual type energy, they normally play like 5 of the lesser types, so in this case dark. So he does have to be careful with how many he starts discarding here as he plays another Compressor. Looks like we just see a couple of Lightnings go in the discard pile, and then we see an N. We see some more energy go on the field. Still no attack as of yet. We do see a Headringer go on to our Shaman. And a Mega for turn. So we can go into... Well, we can bench a Hawlucha. Switch into it. I think I'm happy to start attaching to Groudon. Because we can just comp search. And find ourselves a Primal. I probably shouldn't have played that switch, that means. Kind of misplayed that. But we can just retreat into our robot. As we do Primal. Slight misplay on my part. We could have kept a strong energy for next turn. There. We do see a Sycamore from the opponent. Energy onto the active. At last, he's going to try and kill this Robo. And we do get knocked out for 100. With Evil Ball, it looks like. So we can evolve into Donphan. That was our top deck. And we're going to start nailing our way through this Yveltal. So thanks to that Magnetic Storm, we can hit 60 this turn. Maybe. So I think it's fine to 60 to 120. I'm trying to think how desperately we need Groudon. I don't think we're that desperate for Groudon. But I think I'm also happy to attach this turn. Seeing as though we have teammates for next turn, we can go for that spinning turn, putting 90 on the Yveltal, kind of taunting out a catcher as well. Our opponent's still yet to take prizes, which is really good for us. The Magnetic Storm does get bounced. We see a tool go onto the Yveltal on the bench. There is a Lysander onto the Shaman. And we're going to get knocked out with Y-Cyclone, I believe. So we can go into Hawlucha. And it means we're going to get a knockout this turn, which is nice. It really sets up our Groudon. I'd like to get another energy on Groudon. That's one thing I'm looking for here. So can we do that somehow with the teammates? We're doing 40, 50, 60. Down to 40 at the moment. We could find Fighting Stadium to turn that up to 60 again. That doesn't work. If we find Strong Energy Fighting Stadium for Hawlucha, we can kill it. I guess that kind of works. That way we play into the Manectric, but then our Donphans are actually doing great work there. So it's kind of like a baiting play here. We're going to go for the teammates. And we can go via this route. I think we need to hit 100, don't we? Yes. So we'll grab these two. I could also have gone for a tool rather than the stadium. Which I guess makes kind of sense, but either way I'm pretty happy here. Could hold the Ultra Ball right now. Could also bench the Fampi. I feel like we've got enough Donphans, especially because one's Focus Sash, that we can hold both for now. Could also have gone for another Hawlucha to guarantee like a good switch next turn, but for now I just want to hold it in hand. I just wanted to hold the N more than anything. We see a Manectric get thrown onto the bench. The Mega does come active. He attaches a Lightning to the benched Yveltal. And we also see a Comp Search. Gotta think it's maybe a Lysander. Oh, we just see a Spirit Link. Interesting plays. The Manectric's going to get a knockout here. And he's going to start attaching big time to this Yveltal EX. We can go into our Donphan. We have two Robo Subs. We can also Ultra Ball away these two to find ourselves a Hawlucha. And we're going to play an N. Just looking for energy here. And we do find double colourless. This is kind of good. It's fine that we have it on the Groudon, even though it's a Yveltal doing huge damage. We're just going to let the Focus Sash do the work here. And really, our Groudon's only going to need to take like 2 prizes this game because Donphan's going to do the rest for us on these Manectrics. So we can go into a Robo Sub here. I feel like we've already pretty much ground the game out to a victory. Potentially benching that Hawlucha was risky, but like I say, we have the Focus Sash on this Donphan, so they'd have to still do 4 attacks to kill all of our non-EXs for the 3 prizes. So I'm still absolutely fine with that. And as you can see, he takes out a Robo-Sub, and I think that pretty much secures our victory here. As long as we don't get, like, even if we do get end, I'm happy to hold all of this in hand, and we can just go for the spinning turn. I guess I do need energy, so I could VS Seeker teammates now to guarantee myself an energy for the Groudon, and also a stadium. I think is the best thing. I think Silent Lab's probably our best option, because then we can hit through anything that he wants to throw up. So we will attach another energy to this Groudon. It's raring to go. We have all the stadiums prepared. We can go for this spinning turn, taking 2 more prizes this game. Usually we look to only take 2 prizes, then Groudon will clear up 4. But we've pretty much won the game just outright now. We can waste a few turns monkeying around with these things, but eventually we'll just win with Groudon. So even if he throws up a non-EX here, we can come in with Groudon, kill the non-EX, then they'll have to attack with something, it won't kill us, and then we can just kill whatever else he has. So I'm pretty happy that we've won the game at this point. Maybe a couple of turns ago I think we actually won the game. And now we're just going through the motions of the game. Our opponent's got a few decisions to make. It's pretty difficult to see what he can do here. We have pretty much every option in our own hand already. If he doesn't have an end, we just win. It looks like our opponent's happy to just do the timer, which isn't very nice. But I think it just shows that we've put him in a checkmate position, and this is the only way he can escape this game at this point. And yeah, he's just going to let the timer run out like the cool guy that he is. But let's get into another game. So far we've had matchups against slightly less popular things. I guess Manectric is popular, but not really in that circumstance. Just climbing up the ladder. I've not been playing much this month, but obviously that's going to pick up when we get the new packs in store. And that's going to be any day now. So we are going to find another game here. Looks like we find ourselves a game against Undeclared. Looked to be some sort of metal build from the opening sequence, so it could be interesting here. We have a fairly okay matchup against metal overall. The Aegislash and stuff we can try and get around. Looks like he's playing double colour energies and hammers as well. A couple of things to look out for, but obviously Groudon gets around it quite nicely. But for the Donphan and stuff, don't want to overcommit those sorts of energies there. So let's see what he's playing. Oh, it looks to be a Rayquaza, so a Metal Ray build. This is actually slightly more favourable for us because it means that we don't have to run through like 2 to 3 Aegislash. It's more like they only play 1, sometimes not even any, and they just play Ray and Bronzong to set him up. So we're going to see a first-hand attachment to the Rayquaza. Interesting that he actually had space for these enhanced hammers that we're seeing in his deck. Most Metal Ray decks are fairly tight for space, but he's found room to add disruption cards in there. We see an early Ultra Ball. Interestingly, he got rid of a Skyfield, which he could have dropped from the hand for more for Shaman, but he opted to get rid of it. Train his males for a Spirit Link, and he just passes it over. Fairly slowish start from him. We can bench Hawlucha. I'm really fine with letting Phanpy die here. I just want to find Groudon pieces quite early, and just look through the deck as well. We do have the 1-1 Groudon in here. Oh no, we've got 2-2, so that's pretty good. So we're just going to not even hesitate and go straight for the Groudon. I'm also going to grab the Sash because we have to be careful of Rayquaza. Even in this board state, he can somehow pull off a crazy turn and do a whole lot to us. So it's really okay. Like I say, going down a few prizes is fine with this deck. We'll try and make a comeback in the later turns. So I'm happy to just attach to Groudon this turn. I could also have switched into Hawlucha and got some damage in. It would have only been 60 though. No, it would have been 80, sorry. Which could have been okay, but obviously the Groudon is the preferred method in this matchup, so we're going to try and start stacking that up straight away. and see how our opponent can really deal with this situation. They had a fairly slowish start, so I'm quite happy going for this. We do see that double Colourless Energy get attached. That's all he needs to kill our Phanpy. He does actually choose to Mega Evolve, so now he needs some Pokemon to actually get the knockout, and he actually opts to, interestingly enough, he Mega'd, and that meant that he missed the KO. That's very, very interesting. So here, because he seems to be fairly drawing dead, I think we can go for a Donphan Robo Sub play. The Groudon's still not in too much danger. We've not committed so much to it yet that it's really an issue for us. And this way it means we can actually move this Donphan, which is something we need to do at some point. We could have continued to get the Groudon pieces going, I guess, this turn. But just based on his hand alone, I think it's fine to start going for spinning turns and trying to grind this thing down. Our opponent actually opts to retreat the Rayquaza. Maybe to attach the Shaman, yep. So that he can draw more cards with this Sky Return. Pretty decent move there. It means we can happily go for an end this turn. We find a Muscle Band, which I'll slap onto the Donphan. I'm going to attach the special energy to Groudon. Despite seeing that at least one of those hammers that he does play, I feel like it's worth it here because now we, as you can see, have found a Primal. I can happily retreat into a Phanpy and just Primal for turn here. So, pretty good start for us. Our opponent has been fairly slow. We'll see how the end has treated him though. This could be an explosion of a turn. We do see that Bronzong early on. And there's a Metal Energy. Then we see an Acrobike, getting rid of a double Colourless, which must be pretty bad for him. We see that Rayquaza come down. Still short of a Pokemon if he wants to kill this Phanpy. Seems like he didn't even draw that well. He just Megas for turn. Wow. So I can evolve into Donphan. I'm really not too bothered about attacking this turn. Like I say, poking for 20 is not that big. Let's just keep stacking up the Groudon. And we're obviously not going to end because our opponent still seems to have a pretty duff hand. So we can bench Hawlucha. I think I'm not really sure if I want to Ultra Ball for Shaman to draw more cards because I want to have slots on the bench for Robo Subs. That being said, our opponent will be playing Skyfield at some point, so it could be a means of getting the cards from Shaman now and then discard it later when we bounce the Skyfield away. So that could be a play. We seem to have the energy. I think I could go for that because it means I could try and find a Focus Sash for this Donphan, which could be kind of cool. So we'll go for this Ultra Ball play. And find our Shaman. Just going to make sure we have other things that I'm looking for in the deck here. We do have an AZ, which is interesting. We have just one Robo Sub left in deck, I think. So we seem to have prized a couple. That's fine. So we'll grab Shaman and draw a few cards here. We do grab a switch. Now that it is a Donphan, it might be more valuable than anything else I have. I could simply switch to get 40 damage on the board. I think that's actually a decent enough play. We don't really need too many switches. We're not going to be catcher stalled. And we only really need one if our opponent is playing Dialga, because then we can switch out of our Groudon into a free retreating Hawlucha. So I think here I want to go into a Hawlucha. Even though they're really good at attacking into Rayquazas, I don't want to keep committing energy to like different Donphans each time. I don't think. And that can pop the teammates, which would be really nice for us. I think it's safer just going Hawlucha, especially because I know I have another one in deck. So let's go for that. We seem to be lagging a little bit. My connection has been bad all day, which is a bit unfortunate, but hopefully this works and we don't just get disconnected. I've made my choice. Let it move, Cammy. Let it do it. Please. Please, 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 please. Let it go. Oh. Okay. Server's going down in 10 minutes. Thanks for the message. Okay, so our opponent just attaches to the bench and attacks. Not even for a knockout. Seeing as though we have this Groudon already set up, pretty much, we can start committing to this Donphan to start killing the active, and then Groudon can come in and clear. So we're gonna just keep committing to this Donphan. It's fine if he wants to catch a kill it or anything. Looks like he doesn't have even that good of a hand, so we can continue on. We get the Hawlucha to die, so we can use teammates this turn, and it means we can find ourselves a Robosub, which would be nice. And also we're doing 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, so we are getting a knockout even with the resistance. We have VS Seekers already. I think we're pretty well set already. It might be a case of going for a stadium at this point. We don't even have any in deck, so we'll pull one off the prizes more than likely. So maybe just Lysander to sort of guarantee us good targets the following turn with Groudon. So we're going to take our first two prizes and we'll go into a Robosub. And we're pretty much unscathed so far. Our opponent has been very, very slow. Definitely for a Mega Ray deck. Very, very slow. So there's one of the Robosubs and a Stadium. Looks like we had like amazing prizes. So that's good for us now that we're drawing into them. We see a Bronzor get benched, then a Mega Turbo. Interesting that he plays Mega Turbo and Bronzong. Most Bronzong decks don't play both because it's kind of clunky. But hey, we're finally seeing some Pokemon from our opponent. We see a Winona getting Swablu and Altaria, which doesn't really make much sense, other than just clearing them out of the deck. I guess they're the only other colourless Pokemon he might play. Then we see a Shaman for a couple more cards. Our opponent continuing to be fairly slow in what he does here, but we have pretty much just secured game. We can aggressively discard our robot, go into our Groudon. We have stadiums for next turn. We have the output right now. I'm thinking about attaching the Strong Energy just onto the Groudon so that even if we don't have the stadium the following turn, like if our opponent... No, I think it's fine. I think I'm okay just going for this. And we've got a fully charged Groudon with a Focus Sash on. Our opponent has nothing to do really, and it's victory. So that is going to be it, guys. Maintenance is happening and my computer's starting to freeze. So there's a couple of games with Groudon. We got a game against a Manectric and a game against a Rayquaza deck. The Rayquaza didn't really ever get going, but you could see I had Hawluchas and Donphans like all over the board. Just imagine they weren't really there and our opponent had taken like 3 or 4 prizes. But in the end, we just had to take down one Rayquaza and then Groudon was going to do the rest of the work. And you saw our hand, it was double VS Seeker. We had, I think, 3 stadiums in hand, the Lysander as well. So we have plenty of options as long as we weren't end. And even if we were, there was like nothing really in the deck that was going to hold us back too much. So pretty good stuff there from the Groudon deck. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys consider this deck for Worlds. Bit of a sleeper at the moment. I know a few people fancy Groudon in some capacity, but potentially Donphan has just fallen off the map a little bit, and it's something I would urge you guys to consider once again, because it can put in the work still. So hope you enjoyed, guys. It's been Joe from Omnipoke, and I will see you guys next time.